Bernie Sanders this weekend is making the rounds in California, as we talked about. One of my friends was at the rally in Los Angeles, but he popped up at Coachella. It's worth noting that Eve, before she became a activist in the political space, is an extremely famous music critic beforehand. So you know all about Coachella. I want to show this clip, number one, of him coming in front of all the kids, telling them why they should hate Trump.
This country faces some very difficult challenges. And the future of what happens to America is dependent upon your generation. Now, you can turn away and you can ignore what goes on, but if you do that, you do it at your own peril. We need you to stand up to fight for justice. Now, we got a president of the United States who's... I agree.
Okay, so just a reminder to attend Coachella. It costs anywhere between $1,000 to $6,000 for a ticket, and he is currently on the Fight the Oligarchy tour with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I'll just start with you, Eve, because I don't know if you've been to Coachella, Jamie. I have not.
No.
Yeah. What do you make of this? Is this a way to like reach young people? Also, he was there with Congressman Max Frost from Florida, was at one point the youngest person ever elected to Congress.
The reason that I'm laughing and I find it
Yes.
amazing is just because it's desperate and it reeks of like trying to be relevant at a music festival that, yes, is well attended, but is so far from the days of being politically relevant. I mean, Coachella is like they tick every single box of what the most popular thing is. It's the least renegade, the least anti-establishment, anti-conformist festival you could possibly appear at. As you said, the tickets to go to Coachella are extremely expensive. I can't, the last time I've worked at Coachella for probably like seven or eight times for the BBC and New York Magazine and various other places, The Guardian, etc., etc. The last time I went was maybe about 2017. From memory, you can't get a meal at Coachella from even a taco truck that costs less than $25, right? Like, this is not the everyman's festival. But also, I will say, and no personal insight into my own behavior at festivals, but a lot of the people that you see there would cheer if someone in a chicken costume came on stage. They are mentally augmented by substances. So I wouldn't say that this is necessarily, like any kind of indication of how young people in general react to or endorse certain people and certain political views. I mean, what I think is absolutely fascinating and has been coming out more in the last, you would know more about this, Megan, in terms of demographically where the vote came from in this election, but from the last that I have been told, there was huge popularity among Gen Z voters for Donald Trump. So, I don't think that this indicates one thing either way. And I really, honestly, I don't think that the people who observed Bernie Sanders at this moment at Coachella went home this morning and thought, what I saw at Coachella this week?
Yeah.
That's what I remember. Bernie Sanders, there's no way. So good luck. But
yeah, you've got Lisa from Blackpink performing like alongside him. But I do want to ask you, obviously, Jamie, he's going around with AOC with this Fight the Oligarchy event. They did one in Arizona that had, I think it was like 40,000 people. I have friends who went as journalists and said there was nothing to like knock anything about. I told some of my Republican friends, look, I have friends in Arizona that say you need to watch this. I'm a Republican. My interests are making sure Republicans stay in power. What do you make of all these appearances and what the end game is? He's 83 years old.
Well, I'm a little afraid to admit this in a conversation with a real established music critic, but the last concert I went to was for Kylie Minogue, and
I love
that gives
her.
you a take. Okay, we do good. Okay, so so Coachella is not really my place. It is very much a throwback to like Woodstock, which was a long time ago, and sort of the politicization of music, which has always been, or in most cases, been left-wing progressive. There's a little bit of that kind of 80s, Live Aid and We Are the World, that sort of stuff going on, and the giant sort of, efforts to fix hunger and whatnot. And look, people being politically engaged is a good thing, even though I disagree with Bernie Sanders on almost everything. I do think it's a good thing for people to be politically engaged. As for this tour that they're doing, I mean, I agree with you, Megan. I've heard from lots of people that these are not to be, mocked. I mean, these are big crowds of people who are angry. And look, there's lots of reasons to be angry at the Trump administration, and I just think it's because if you look at the leadership of the Democratic Party, I think they look very weak right now, and they look like they're not doing enough to resist Trump. And without getting into a whole conversation about whether that's true or not, there's such outrage and such anger, which is understandable, that people like Bernie and AOC are really good at harnessing that and using that, and partly largely because they've never really had power before, right? If you've never had political power, it's very easy to sit on the sidelines and call Chuck Schumer, a weak coward who doesn't know what he's doing, and the whole list of things, right? But Bernie's never had political power, and I honestly think that he enjoys not having political power, because when you're someone like him, he's much more comfortable being in a place where he can be a utopian and talk about all of his utopian ideas. And he's never had to actually implement them in his entire life. And the one time he did have power, he was mayor of Burlington. What did he do? He was spending most of his time, going to Moscow, or going to all these other places, rather than like dealing with, shoveling the snow on the streets, right? So I think that's what we're seeing.